The evening air was thick with unspoken tension as I returned home from work, the familiar scent of Evelyn's lavender candles wafting through the house. I paused for a moment at the door, listening to the soft notes of jazz filtering through the living room. It was our ritual, music playing in the background while she prepared dinner, her laughter mingling with the sounds of sizzling vegetables. But tonight there was something different, an undercurrent of anxiety that I couldn't quite shake off. As I stepped inside, Evelyn appeared, her smile radiant, but her eyes betraying a hint of something darker. She wore a fitted dress that hugged her curves perfectly, a deep crimson that contrasted sharply with the soft colors of our home. I couldn't help but admire her, the way the fabric clung to her waist, accentuating the swell of her hips. My heart raced for a moment, the mundane aspects of our life fading away, replaced by a primal urge that had always lingered beneath the surface. "Hey, love," she said, her voice sultry as she approached me. She reached up, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that felt achingly intimate. "How was your day?" "Same old," I replied, attempting to keep my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I wanted to ask her about Mark, about the late-night calls and whispered conversations, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I leaned in and kissed her, tasting the faint sweetness of the red wine she had already poured for herself. Our lips met softly, a familiar dance that had once felt electric but now left a bitter taste in my mouth. I could feel the warmth radiating from her body, the way she melted against me. But there was an edge to my desire, a flicker of doubt that dimmed the fire of our intimacy. I pulled back slightly, searching her eyes for a truth I was terrified to confront. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, her smile returning, but I sensed the distraction in her demeanor. I watched as she turned back to the kitchen, her movements graceful yet hurried. The soft clinking of dishes filled the air, but all I could focus on was the gnawing feeling in my gut, a mixture of longing and jealousy. As we sat down to eat, the conversation flowed, but I felt like a ghost, haunting my own life. I tried to engage, to laugh at her jokes and share in her stories, but my mind kept drifting back to the image of her with Mark. The way she had laughed, the way her eyes sparkled when he was around, it was a sight I couldn't erase from my memory. Later, as we moved to the living room with glasses of wine in hand, I tried to find solace in the familiar warmth of her presence. Evelyn curled up beside me, her head resting on my shoulder as the soft glow of the fireplace flickered. For a moment, I closed my eyes, allowing myself to get lost in the comfort of her touch. But the image of her entwined with Mark lingered like a dark shadow, taunting me, reminding me of the reality I was too afraid to face. "Do you remember the trip we took to the beach?" she asked, her voice low and melodic, breaking through my thoughts. I nodded, recalling the sun-soaked days and the nights spent wrapped in each other's arms, the air thick with the scent of salt water and passion. "I miss those days," I admitted, trying to keep my tone light. "We should plan another getaway." Evelyn's gaze shifted, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Was it guilt? Excitement? I couldn't tell. Instead of responding, she leaned in closer, her lips brushing against my neck, igniting a fire within me that battled against the cold dread of betrayal. I inhaled sharply, caught between desire and despair, feeling the warmth of her body against mine, a stark reminder of what was at stake. The tension hung heavy in the air, and as I glanced at her, I felt the weight of our unspoken truths crashing down around us. My heart raced not just with passion but with an insatiable need to uncover the truth lurking beneath her skin. I wanted to believe that our love could withstand anything, but the nagging feeling of doubt clung to me, refusing to let go. In that moment, I understood that the night was just beginning, and the choices we made would determine not just the course of our lives, but the very foundation of our love. Would I confront her about Mark? Or would I bury my feelings beneath the surface, pretending everything was fine while the world crumbled around us? As the flames danced in the fireplace, I knew I had to make a decision, one that would change everything. I took a deep breath, determined to find the words that had eluded me for so long. "Evelyn, we need to talk." Evelyn paused, her playful smile fading as she tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Talk about what?" Her voice was steady, but I could sense the slight tremor beneath it, as if she already knew what was coming. I took a moment, gathering my thoughts, feeling the weight of my emotions press heavily on my chest. The flames crackled softly in the fireplace, casting flickering shadows around the room, illuminating her delicate features. She looked beautiful, a goddess draped in the soft fabric of her dress, and yet, the reality of our situation felt like a dark cloud hovering above us. "About us," I said, my voice low and deliberate. I wanted to strip away the layers of our evening routine, the pleasant small talk, and get to the heart of the matter. "About what's been going on lately." Her gaze sharpened, and I watched as the tension in her shoulders tightened. "What do you mean?" she asked, but there was an edge to her voice, a hint of defensiveness that made my heart race. "Mark," I said, the name falling from my lips like a heavy stone. "I can't ignore the way things have changed between us, the way you light up when he's around." Evelyn shifted, the warmth of her body pulling away just a fraction as her expression hardened. "Peter, you're being paranoid. Mark is just a friend." "Just a friend?" I echoed, incredulous. "Evelyn, you've been secretive, and I can feel the distance between us. It's like you're hiding something, and I need to know what it is." Her breath hitched, and for a moment, the air between us crackled with unspoken tension. I could see the battle waging in her eyes: fear, guilt, desire. She opened her mouth to respond but faltered, a soft sigh escaping instead. "Okay," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe things have changed. But can't we just enjoy tonight? Forget everything else for a while?" I felt the pulse of desire surge within me, the temptation to let it all slide and lose myself in her. The way she looked tonight, the warmth radiating from her body, it was intoxicating. I could easily drown in the sweetness of her laughter, the softness of her skin. But the darkness loomed too large to ignore. "What about us?" I pressed, feeling a mix of desperation and longing. "I want to be with you, Evelyn. All of you. I need to understand what's happening between you and Mark." She hesitated, her eyes flickering away from mine, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of regret. But then she leaned closer, her fingers brushing against my arm, sending a jolt of electricity coursing through me. "Peter, let's not turn this into a fight. We can talk about it later." I could see her breathing quicken, and as she leaned in, her lips brushed softly against my neck, igniting every nerve ending in my body. It was a familiar touch that once felt innocent but now held an edge of something forbidden. My resolve wavered, desire battling with the urge to confront the truth. "Evelyn," I began, but the words caught in my throat as her lips traced a delicate path along my skin, igniting a fire deep within me. I was losing my grip, the reality of our conversation slipping away as I succumbed to the heat radiating between us. "Just for tonight," she murmured, her breath warm against my ear. "Let's forget the rest." In that moment, I felt myself surrender to her, my thoughts swirling in a haze of desire and confusion. I pulled her closer, our bodies fitting together like pieces of a puzzle, the world around us fading away. The tension that had filled the room dissolved as our lips met again, this time with urgency, with need. Her hands tangled in my hair, pulling me deeper into the kiss, and I felt my heart race in sync with the heat rising within me. I wanted to lose myself in her, to drown out the doubts and fears that gnawed at my insides. But even as I melted against her, the shadow of betrayal lingered at the edges of my mind. As our kiss deepened, I felt her body pressing against mine, every curve igniting my senses. I could taste the wine on her lips, sweet and intoxicating, and it only fueled my desire. But beneath the heat of the moment, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The thrill of our connection battled with the icy tendrils of doubt creeping into my heart. "Evelyn," I murmured between kisses, my hands roaming her back, pulling her closer still. "What if—" "Shh," she interrupted, her lips finding mine again, silencing my fears with a hunger that felt both comforting and terrifying. She kissed me with a fervor that made my head spin, her body pressing against me as if trying to erase the distance that had grown between us. The fire crackled in the background, casting a warm glow around us as we surrendered to the moment, losing ourselves in the heat of our passion. But even as I lost myself in her embrace, A small voice in my mind whispered that the real battle was far from over. The truth was waiting in the shadows, ready to emerge when I least expected it. And as I held Evelyn tightly, surrendering to the moment, I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would change everything. As we surrendered to the heat of the moment, the world around us faded away, leaving only the two of us wrapped in each other's arms. Evelyn's soft whispers filled the space, her breath mingling with the crackling sounds of the fire. I felt her fingers dance along my spine, tracing patterns that ignited every nerve in my body. Each touch sent shivers of desire coursing through me, reminding me of the deep connection we once shared. God, I've missed this, she breathed, pulling back slightly to gaze into my eyes. There was a fire in her gaze that mirrored my own, a desperate longing that had been simmering beneath the surface for too long. In that moment, all my doubts seemed to dissolve, and I was lost in the intoxicating allure of her presence. With a swift movement, she climbed onto my lap, her dress sliding up slightly, exposing the smooth skin of her thighs. I couldn't help but let out a low groan as she settled against me, the warmth of her body pressing into mine. The familiar scent of her perfume filled my senses, a heady mix of jasmine and something sweet, wrapping around me like a cocoon. Evelyn! I started, but the words slipped away as she leaned in, capturing my lips with hers once more. The kiss was hungry and passionate, a fierce reminder of everything we had shared over the years. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her closer, feeling her heart racing against my chest. She began to grind against me, a slow rhythm that sent sparks shooting through my body. I felt my resolve crumbling with every movement, every sigh that escaped her lips. Her hands roamed over my shoulders, down my arms, exploring every inch of me as if she were trying to reclaim something lost. "Let go, Peter," she whispered against my mouth, her voice laced with urgency. "Just let it be about us right now." The heat between us was overwhelming, and I found myself responding to her every touch. I slid my hands down her back, my fingers tracing the curve of her waist, feeling the softness of her skin beneath the fabric. She arched her back, pressing herself into me, her body inviting and intoxicating. As we continued to kiss, I could feel the tension building, the air thick with unspoken words and desires. I pulled away slightly, searching her eyes, wanting to read the truth behind her passion. "What about Mark?" I managed to ask, the question hanging heavy between us. "Forget about him," she breathed, her eyes dark with need. "Tonight is about us, about feeling alive again." And with that, she captured my lips once more, her kisses deepening as if to erase the doubts that lingered in the corners of my mind. I let out a groan, the sound raw and primal, as I pulled her closer, feeling the heat radiating off her body. My hands tangled in her hair, holding her to me as if I were afraid she might slip away. But even as I lost myself in her, part of me screamed in protest. This was a dangerous game we were playing, a thin line we were walking between desire and betrayal. I wanted to surrender to the moment, to forget everything else, but the knowledge of her betrayal loomed like a dark cloud, threatening to overshadow our passion. Evelyn seemed to sense my hesitation, her fingers trailing down my chest, her touch igniting a fire within me. "Peter," she said softly, pulling back just enough to meet my gaze, "let's make tonight unforgettable." With that, she leaned in again, her body pressing against mine, and I felt myself giving in, the weight of our reality momentarily forgotten. My hands slid down to her thighs, feeling the softness of her skin, and I could hear the rapid beat of my heart echoing in my ears. As the intensity between us grew, I felt her pull back slightly, searching my eyes for a sign of hesitation. "I want you, Peter," she said, her voice husky with desire. "I want to feel you." The words ignited something deep within me, and without thinking, I lifted her off my lap and carried her to the couch, laying her down gently. The firelight flickered around us, casting a warm glow on her skin, highlighting the curves that had always captivated me. As I leaned over her, our lips crashing together with a fierce urgency, I could feel the world outside our bubble fade away. She wrapped her legs around me, pulling me closer, and I could feel the heat of her desire radiating against me. Every kiss, every touch felt electric, and I lost myself in the rhythm of our bodies, the hunger consuming us both. But even in the depths of passion, the nagging doubt persisted. I wanted to believe that we could reclaim what we once had, that this moment could wash away the betrayal. But as her fingers tangled in my hair and her body arched against mine, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were dancing on the edge of a precipice, one misstep away from falling into a darkness we might never escape. And yet, in that moment, I chose to embrace the uncertainty, surrendering to the heat of the night and the warmth of Evelyn's body. I pressed my lips against her neck, trailing kisses down to her collarbone, feeling the soft gasp escape her lips as I continued my exploration. "Let's make this moment ours," I whispered against her skin, my voice barely audible over the crackling fire. She nodded, her breath hitching as I continued to lose myself in her, the lines of betrayal and desire blurring into one as we embraced the night, caught in a whirlwind of passion and unspoken truths. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows around the room as I continued to explore Evelyn's body, each kiss igniting a flame of desire deep within me. I felt her arch against me, every curve and contour urging me to delve deeper into our shared passion. Her skin was soft and warm beneath my fingertips, and the scent of her lavender perfume enveloped us, creating an intoxicating atmosphere. I trailed my lips along her collarbone, tasting the delicate warmth of her skin, and every gentle touch seemed to draw out a soft gasp or a sigh from her lips. "You feel incredible," I murmured, my breath warm against her flesh, and I could see her eyes flutter closed in response, lost in the sensations I was creating. Evelyn's fingers tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, as if she were trying to anchor me to this moment. "Peter," she breathed, her voice laced with urgency. "I want to feel everything." I lifted my gaze to meet hers, the intensity of her desire reflected back at me. In that moment, the weight of our reality slipped further away, leaving only the two of us caught in an electric connection that felt both familiar and foreign. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, even though my body screamed for more. "Yes," she replied, her eyes shining with need. "I want you now." With her encouragement, I leaned in again, our mouths crashing together in a fervent kiss that conveyed everything we couldn't say aloud. My hands found their way to her hips, fingers digging into the soft fabric of her dress, and I felt her shiver beneath my touch. The heat radiating from her body was intoxicating, each movement igniting my own desire, pushing me further into a state of longing. I slowly pushed the straps of her dress down her arms, revealing more of her skin, the sight of her bare shoulders sending a rush of blood to my cheeks. She was beautiful, and in the dim light, I could see every curve, every line that made her uniquely Evelyn. My heart raced as I marveled at her, feeling a mix of reverence and raw hunger. "God, you're stunning," I said, my voice thick with desire. She smiled coyly, a blush creeping across her cheeks, and I knew in that moment that she felt it too, the electric current of passion that surged between us, binding us together in a dance of intimacy and longing. As I kissed a trail down her neck, I could feel her pulse quicken beneath my lips. I savored the way she responded to my touch, her body arching and melting into mine as if we were two halves of a whole. My hands roamed her body, exploring every inch of her as I sought to drive away the doubts that lingered in the back of my mind. The intimacy of the moment was overwhelming, a heady mix of desire and vulnerability that left me breathless. I felt her fingers slide down my back, tracing the outline of my muscles, igniting a fire within me that begged to be released. Every kiss, every soft whisper only drew us closer, wrapping us in a cocoon of heat that threatened to consume us both. "Peter," she breathed again, her voice thick with need. "I want to feel you inside me." The raw intensity of her words sent a shockwave through me, awakening a primal urge that coursed through my veins. I hesitated for a moment, a flicker of doubt returning as I thought of Mark, the man who had driven a wedge between us. But the heat of the moment eclipsed those thoughts, and I found myself nodding, drawn in by the insatiable desire that had taken hold. "Let's take this slow," I said, my voice hoarse as I positioned myself over her, our bodies aligned in a perfect rhythm. I pressed my lips to hers once more, the kiss deepening as we lost ourselves in the fire of our passion. I could feel her heart racing against my chest, and it matched the rhythm of my own, creating a symphony of desire that filled the room. With every movement, I felt the world outside melt away, leaving only the two of us entwined in our own universe of longing and need. I reveled in the intimacy of our connection, the way our bodies seemed to fit together perfectly, as if we had been made for one another. As I began to move against her, I could hear her soft gasps and moans, each sound urging me on, stoking the flames of desire that burned within us both. The heat of her body against mine was intoxicating, and I felt the boundaries of our relationship blurring, the space between love and lust collapsing into a heady mix of emotions. Evelyn's hands roamed over my back, urging me deeper, pulling me closer as we explored the depths of our connection. I lost myself in her, drowning in the sensations that enveloped us both, feeling every inch of her body respond to my touch. We were suspended in a moment that felt timeless, a cocoon of intimacy that wrapped around us like a warm embrace. As we moved together, I felt a sense of freedom washing over me, a release from the chains of doubt and betrayal that had shackled me for too long. This was our moment, a chance to reclaim what we had lost, even if just for a night. And as I held her close, surrendering to the heat and the rhythm of our bodies, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were dancing on the edge of a cliff, the reality of our choices lurking just beyond the shadows. But in that moment, with her warm breath against my skin and the fire crackling in the background, I chose to embrace the passion, to lose myself in the wild abandon of our desires, hoping that somehow we could find our way back to each other amidst the chaos. As the night enveloped us, every touch felt like a spark igniting a wildfire. I lost myself in Evelyn, every movement drawing us deeper into a world where nothing else mattered. The soft glow of the fire illuminated her features, and the intensity in her eyes fueled the flames of my desire. With each thrust, I felt the tension between us dissolve, leaving behind only the raw, primal urge to connect. I pressed my lips against her neck, tasting the warmth of her skin as I breathed in her intoxicating scent. Her fingers dug into my back, urging me to lose myself completely in the moment, and I obliged, surrendering to the waves of pleasure that coursed through us. "Peter!" she gasped, her voice a heady mix of pleasure and urgency. "More! I want more!" Her words sent a jolt of electricity through me, igniting every nerve ending and pushing me further into the depths of our intimacy. I reveled in the sounds escaping her lips, each gasp and moan echoing in my ears, urging me on. It felt as if we were the only two people in the universe, suspended in a moment of pure ecstasy, where time ceased to exist. As I kissed her deeply, I could feel her body responding to mine, every curve and contour fitting perfectly against me. I let my hands explore her, tracing the lines of her waist, feeling the softness of her skin beneath my fingertips. Every touch felt like an affirmation, a reminder that we were still connected, still alive amidst the chaos that threatened to pull us apart. "Tell me what you want," I murmured against her lips, my voice thick with desire. "I want to feel all of you," she breathed, her eyes dark with hunger. "I want to forget everything else, just for tonight." Her words stirred something deep within me, and I tightened my grip on her waist, feeling her body arch against mine. I began to move with a slow, deliberate rhythm, each thrust a promise, each kiss a reminder of the connection we once had. The world around us faded into a blur, leaving only the two of us lost in the heat of the moment. Evelyn's hands roamed over my body, tracing the muscles of my arms, my chest, as if she were memorizing every inch of me. I could feel her heartbeat against my skin, the rhythm matching the intensity of our connection. Each movement ignited a fire within me, a primal need that demanded to be satisfied. As we sank deeper into our rhythm, I felt a surge of passion that threatened to consume us both. The intensity built like a wave, crashing over us, pulling us under, and I surrendered to the swell of desire. I could feel her body tightening around me, the way she responded to my every touch, urging me on as we danced on the precipice of ecstasy. "Just like that," she whispered, her voice barely a breath as I moved within her, each thrust driving us closer to the edge. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of vulnerability and longing, and I was captivated by the sheer intensity of our connection. The room was filled with the sounds of our bodies colliding, the fire crackling softly in the background as we lost ourselves in each other. I felt her fingers gripping my shoulders, pulling me closer, anchoring me to the moment as if she feared I might slip away. Every kiss, every sigh wrapped around us like a warm blanket, shielding us from the realities of the world outside. "Evelyn," I breathed, my voice thick with emotion. "I want you to know." "Shh," she interrupted, capturing my lips once more, silencing my thoughts with a fervent kiss. The taste of her was intoxicating, a blend of sweetness and urgency that sent me spiraling into a haze of desire. In that moment, I pushed aside the lingering doubts, the whispers of betrayal that threatened to seep into my mind. I chose to focus solely on her, on us. We were entwined in a beautiful chaos, two souls desperate to reconnect, to find solace in one another. With every movement, I felt the boundaries between us dissolve, our bodies melding into one as we reached the peak of our passion. The world outside ceased to exist, leaving only the two of us and the electric connection that surged between us. I could feel the heat building, the urgency growing as we pushed closer to the edge. "I'm right here," I murmured against her ear, feeling her shiver at my words. "Just let go." Her breath hitched, and I felt her body tense around me, every muscle tightening as we approached the brink. "Peter, I'm so close," she gasped, her voice trembling with need. "Just a little more," I urged, my movements growing more frantic, more desperate as I chased the fire that threatened to consume us both. With one final thrust, I felt her body explode against mine, the waves of pleasure crashing over us in a rush of heat and ecstasy. Her cries echoed in the room, a beautiful sound that wrapped around me, urging me to follow her into the depths of our shared passion. As I surrendered to the tide, the world melted away, leaving only the two of us entwined in a moment that felt both timeless and fleeting. We clung to each other, our bodies trembling with the aftershocks of our release, the air thick with the remnants of our desire. As the last echoes of our passion faded, I held her close, feeling the weight of everything we had just shared. But even as we lay together, our hearts racing and bodies entwined, I knew the shadows of our reality loomed just outside our bubble, waiting for us to face the truth. As the echoes of our passion faded into the quiet of the night, I held Evelyn close, her body still warm against mine. The flickering light from the fire cast dancing shadows around us, and for a brief moment, I allowed myself to forget the turmoil that lay just beneath the surface of our blissful intimacy. We lay intertwined, our breaths gradually slowing, the weight of what we had just shared hanging heavy in the air. I could feel her heartbeat against my chest, a steady rhythm that grounded me in the aftermath of our explosive connection. But as the minutes slipped by, the reality of our situation began to creep back in, unwelcome but unavoidable. Evelyn stirred beside me, her fingers tracing small patterns on my skin, and I could see the soft glow of uncertainty in her eyes. "Peter," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "what does this mean for us?" The question hung between us like a delicate thread, fragile yet strong enough to bind us to the truth. I took a deep breath, searching for the right words as the weight of my emotions pressed down on me. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice thick with vulnerability. "I want to believe that we can move past this, but the shadows of tonight, they won't just disappear." She nodded, a glimmer of understanding passing between us. "I know I've made mistakes," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But tonight felt so real, so right. I don't want to lose that." A part of me wanted to reassure her, to tell her that everything would be fine, that we could find our way back to the love we once had. But another part of me screamed in protest, reminding me of the trust that had been shattered, of the betrayal that had crept into our lives like a thief in the night. "Evelyn," I said slowly, choosing my words carefully, "I love you, but I can't ignore what's happened. I need time to process everything." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and I could see the hurt reflected in them. "I never meant for it to happen," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I was lost, and I let the wrong person in. But I want to fight for us, for what we had." I wanted to believe her. I truly did. The connection we had reignited tonight felt undeniable, a spark that had lain dormant for too long. But could we truly rebuild from the ashes of betrayal? "I want that too," I replied, my heart aching at the thought of losing her. "But it's going to take time, Evelyn. We have to be honest with each other, no more secrets." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks as she wiped them away. I promise. No more lies. I'll do whatever it takes to regain your trust. The vulnerability in her eyes tugged at my heart, and I reached out to cup her face in my hands. We'll figure this out together, I said, my voice softening. But it's going to be hard. We need to confront everything, and that might hurt. Her gaze never wavered, determination shining through the sadness. I'm ready, she whispered, leaning into my touch. I want to make this right, Peter. As we sat together in the soft glow of the firelight, I felt a flicker of hope emerge amidst the uncertainty. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with hard conversations and painful truths, but perhaps it was a road worth traveling. In that moment, I made a silent vow to myself, to face whatever lay ahead with an open heart, ready to navigate the complex landscape of love, trust, and forgiveness. With the warmth of her body beside me and the soft glow of the fire casting shadows around us, I knew we were both at a crossroads, our lives intertwined in a delicate balance of desire and doubt. And as we lay there, still wrapped in each other's arms, I took a deep breath, hoping that together we could forge a new path, one that would lead us back to the love we once cherished and perhaps even something deeper than we had ever known. For now, we had each other, and that was a start.